So
Call the meeting to order at 4:04. And this is going to be a little bit tedious. Let's find out if we have anybody in the audience that wants to make a comment first. Anybody there?
oh yeah, Pat Grab, we have Rhonda, so
Okay, so let's proceed with the minutes. We'll start with the minutes from May the 10th. Are there any corrections or additions? Okay. We'll just go through them all, then we'll vote, okay? The 20 from the 17th, any concerns? No. Okay. 22nd? 6th? No? Okay, and the 12th, okay. So I'll take a motion to accept all of these. Financial report, we're ready for you, Patty.
hey Patty, give me just a second if you would, please.
Yes.
While you work on that, Chief, I just had my head down writing notes and you did gestures to make the motions. So my minutes are going to reflect that Commissioner Katz made the motion and Commissioner Harper seconded it, and you all agreed past 3-0. Was that correct?
We'll buy that, sure.
Okay.
Why don't I have? Okay, Patty.
Oh, hey, Chief, that was the first one that I sent. I sent a later one last night because we received a last minute invoice.
Okay, give me a second, please.
Okay.
Well, the only one I got is that I can see is from 6:53 p.m. So
Let me see real quick here. I sent it at 7:45.
I got it.
Okay. And that was due to, we had received an overhead door company invoice last night. So I had spoken with John and he wanted to get that in with payables, which was great.
Sorry, everybody. So just.
I do have one other item. I could go over that real quick prior to
Oh.
you putting up the financial report,
Yeah, please.
if that's okay. Yes. I have a void cancel warrant request for the commissioners to approve And that is to void warrant number 1167140. It was dated April 25th of 2023 in the amount of $705.90. It was payable to Potty Wagon for services. The warrant was lost in the mail and it's currently uncashed. And they have signed an affidavit for the county stating that they have not received that. So I have included that in with our June payables, but for proper procedure, I just need approval from the board and for them to sign the void cancel warrant authorization.
Okay. So we have a motion to that effect? Yes. Okay, and you're seconding it? Okay. Moved and seconded, passed.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, is this the right one?
Perfect. Thank you, Chief. Yeah,
Okay.
just changed it, the total of the warrants. So today we have June warrants that total $34,535.75. The total for payroll is $20,912.46. That includes Chief Carlton's salary of $5,707.92 and Chief Shield's pay of $3,433.34. And there were 3 events for each of the commissioners and the board secretary. The total payout for the warrants, for the volunteers, including the warrants, was $14,633. And the May financials have been passed out for review by the board. So today I'm requesting the board's approval for the warrants and payroll for June. Yes, and listed below are any items over $1,000 along with the Visa total as well.
Are there any questions from you? Any concerns about finances? No, okay. So, okay, it's been moved and seconded that we accept the warrants for 33,000.
34. Read this up here, Commissioner.
Purchase, I guess so.
That was her over.
$35.75, and the payroll for $20,912.46. A total of what is the total? Thank you. And it's been moved and seconded that we accept that. And it is accepted. Anything else, Patty?
Yes, just a real quick update on the budget. To date, as of April 31st, we currently have 65.58% of the budget remaining, and that is compared to 64.80 the same time last year.
We're staying ahead of it.
Well, that always comes to a head at the end of the year. So remember, we have about a $30,000+ payment that we have at the end of the year towards insurance, and other stuff comes due at the end of the year. All of our apparatus gets serviced and everything else. So it'll come down sharply as we go through the year. So I'd like to go over a couple things on the warrants over 1,000. So Whidbey Telecom lease, we have our Fire 1, Fire 2 radio channels on Whidbey Telecom, and that's our contract with Whidbey. That increases, I believe, 3% a year. And we've had that since 2015, 16, somewhere in there, a while now, because we're not receiving the services that we needed to from the county and FAR's radio systems. So our communications were put up on Whidbey's tower so we can communicate off of Fire 1, Fire 2. That was at an expense of the district. Alexander McBain, he's our supervising physician. His fees to supervise this district for medical, review medical calls with us and also give us a DEA permission so I can order my paramedic medications. His fee is $5,000 for this year. EMS supplies, 5,226. That includes a partial grant that we got for that device right there, which is a ventilator. And that device was over, I believe it was around $7,500. And we got a grant through Medic One to cover a portion of that. But this is a new ventilator for us, meaning that it provides us the ability to hook it up when we don't have the personnel necessary to have somebody bagging or sitting on the airway. So somebody that's intubated, we can provide them respiratory status or ventilations. And then this is also used for CPAP and BiPAP, so continuous positive airway pressure for those patients who have COPD, emphysema, asthma, and or CHF, so congestive heart failure. So that little machine right there, I believe the going price without discounts was over $9,000. And we got it down to somewhere in the 7,000, and then we ended up having to cover 5,200 of it. So just trying to point out to everybody that that device is very sophisticated, but very small and costs a lot.
Amazing.
So that's where that $5,200 for Life Assist EMS supplies is coming from. So just wanted to cover that.
Okay, so you're going on with your report, Chief?
Yeah, let me see if I can
This doesn't tell me anything.
bring that up. Does his that he gave you?
So did you have any correspondence, Chief?
No correspondence to mention at the meeting at this point. We've had a lot of thank you, obviously we get thank yous and everything else. The community is dealing with quite a few deaths over the past month and a half. And I'm just letting everybody knows that we're here for anybody that needs to have any additional support, extra support because of those deaths. And it's hit the community very hard. So please reach out to us if you need any support, anything from us to help you cope with those losses that our community has sustained.
And your report?
Yeah. So this is my chief officer report for June 2023 for the month of May. Point of information, a lot of concern about wildfires in the community, and wildfire season is upon us. Everything's getting drier. Just want to make sure people understand that just because it's sprinkled for a couple days and misted for a couple days, that doesn't do anything to change the fuel moistures of all the grass and the trees and the bushes significantly to take a burn ban off. So our burn ban right now is encompassing residential burns and also land clearing. So those are prohibited within the community. So a residential burn would be somebody that's burning on open ground and with piles of yard debris. Obviously, trash has been illegal for a long time. So anybody burning direct trash, cardboard, trash bags, anything like that, dimensional lumber has been illegal as well. So anybody burning construction material, we need to be called on or notify us so we can handle the situation. And then the burn that is still allowed are recreational burns. Those have to be in a built, say again, a built pit. So that can be bricks, masonry blocks, whatever it be, but it needs to be in a built pit or a commercial pit. And those are still sometimes dangerous because we can't burn if the wind is over 7 miles per hour. So if the treetops are moving, it's usually reach the 6 mile, 7 mile an hour point, and you need to be considering if you should continue burning. If the wind's whipping up in your yard, you have a breeze on your face or anything like that, that's a consideration that you may need to not burn or put your fire out. The recreational fire can go until you go to sleep, but then it has to be put out completely by the time you go to bed. No fires, regardless of type, can cause nuisance to the neighbors. So if we are called and we show up and we notice that, yes, there is a lot of smoke laying down in the neighborhood and it's causing issues with homes and inside homes, then we'll have you put out your fire as well. What I say is, please call 911. Please call 911. The phone number for 911, that's the 10 digit, is 360-676-6911. So if you are using a cell phone and you happen to be on a Canadian cell tower provider, you can call 360-676-6911 and be directed, regardless of cell provider that you're on at the time, directly to Whatcom County's 911 system. That'll be the quickest way. During a cardiac arrest recently, there was difficulty getting a hold of 911. And I don't know the underlinings of that, but somehow it was reported to one of our officers who was here, and whether that was a drive up at the time or not. But we went on the road and dispatched ourselves within our vehicles as we were headed that direction for that family. So if there's something you see that makes you tilt your head, that you're concerned about or anything, please call 911. Let us come out. Let us make contact with the individuals. Neighbors are trying to contact their neighbors and have those discussions. And as far as I'm finding out, those discussions aren't going well with the neighbors that I've been involved with. There's tension there. So I would, again, please allow us to handle that. That's why we're here. We can send them to the fire marshal's office. We can send them to Northwest Clean Air, and big fines start happening at that point. So if they're doing everything legally and they're not bothering anybody, someone's just concerned about the burn, we'll come and check it out. But if we deem it to be safe, then we'll allow them to keep burning. But we need people to help us help you by dialing in 911 or the 360-676-6911 in order to get us dispatched out and on scene so we can investigate it, document it, take pictures, those types of things. So please call 911 if you have any concerns with wildfire, any type of fire or medical emergency. Please do not try to drive here to the fire hall. We may not be here, and then you're just delaying time for that treatment for the person that needs it. I don't have any apparatus reports. We still have around 38 members. We've lost a couple, but it's really been this month that we've lost actually one of our females that we hired 8 weeks ago. Probably 8 weeks ago, named Jenny Campbell. Extremely capable, and her father was retired battalion chief or captain from Vancouver Fire, battalion chief, we believe. And she just got a career offer in Surrey. So we're happy to see her on her way to her career, and very proud of her. So, but I kind of knew we weren't going to have her for very long because we have another female, Brittany, as well, and a number of males within the agency that are very strong candidates. And I think our turnover is going to be quicker this time with this class than it has been in the past. So we still have a few people on our hiring list, and we'll bring those in as needed in the next month, and make sure we keep up our ranks to the degree that we need to for response purposes.
How long did you bring in a new?
So we have, right now, we have 2 intakes a year. We usually have one at the beginning of summer and one at the beginning of fall. So we have a list for the winter months, and we also have a list for the summer months. And we run our own internal academy at that point to get them through the administrative parts of doing the job here, and then teaching our skill sets to them since they are already certified as firefighter 1, firefighter 2, and hazardous materials. They have to have those credentials to even get hired here as a volunteer. So 2 intakes right now. The hiring on the Lower Mainland is very high at this point. So we have incredible candidates that come through, the young men and women who come through this agency. And it's just a matter of time before those that are wanting to move on to career positions are picked up. So. Volunteer hours, we're still working for our new reporting system provider to get our hours tallied for the month for all of the stuff that our volunteers do. So hopefully next month on my reports, I'll be able to give you those hours. We just had a meeting with them a few days ago, and they're putting in some work for our platform. Volunteer payroll, if all volunteers were getting paid, it's 15,462. Combined chief hours, I worked 174.5. Assistant Chief Shield 135, with a combined total chief hours provided to this community of 309.5. Incidents, we had 38 incidents. In the month of May, we had 16 EMS calls. We transported 6 patients to the hospital by this agency. We had 3 Airlift Northwest calls. We had 5 no transports. We had 1 county medic transfer and a BLS transfer to North Whatcom Fire Rescue. We had 6 community paramedic visits. We had 5 public service calls or classifications, and 11 classifications that resemble the fire module. And that's, we had 2 permitted burns, 2 illegal burns, 1 smoke investigation, 2 false alarms. We had 1 power line incident in the month of May, 1 animal rescue, 2 gas leaks, and I believe that satisfies the fire classification area. So in total, hopefully that adds up to 38. And that is the completion of my chief's report for the month of May 2023 at the June commissioner meeting.
Any questions of the chief? No? Thank you very much. So the next thing on the agenda is unfinished business. And that brings us back to our discussion of future.
So yeah, I'm bringing it back to the bond levy discussions that we've been having over now reaching 4 or 5 or 6 meetings, 4 or 5 meetings, special meetings that we've had along with this meeting here. So I'll start where I normally start and just review everything with the general public. I don't believe that can be done enough. So I'll start bringing up some of the forms and moving forwards. I think at this point from our last meeting, I'd like to open up the discussion first that at this point, I believe a bond is, if a bond is necessary, it would be years out from now, and that we need to substantiate the financials for the district through an increased levy. And if that's the case, then I won't discuss bonds at this point or this venture in our discussions, and concentrate on the levy measure, if that's what the commissioners would like to do.
We're all in agreement.
Okay, so we'll move ahead with the levy discussions. At this point, last meeting, I'm going to deliver the videos to my videographer that puts them together and publishes them, hopefully tomorrow or the next day. And I'm hoping that the last 2 or 3 meetings that we've had will be published by Monday, if not sooner. So the public, if they haven't been able to attend these meetings, can catch up where we're at on our financial discussions.
A question while you're doing that is, are you getting many questions from people outside of our meetings?
I am not.
Okay.
I don't have, I have some communication, some steady communications with some members of the community. And I think those discussions have gone well. And sometimes we agree differently versus disagree. We agree differently. But the goal of this is to find a valid solution that will sustain our financial future for the years to come and allow us to put away a good deal of money every year to start completing our capital infrastructure plans that we have, and overcome anything that might be outside of those plans during a period of time. So let me see if I want to start out with the chart, this chart. So this chart was brought up, and a very good question was asked at the last meeting regarding the valuation change that we've had over the years, where it's a devaluation or it's a increase in valuation for the community at large. And they kind of had a concept that, you know, their taxes went up greatly, and our valuation went up greatly as well in 2023. By my calculations, 186 million in 1 year. The preceding, however many years that is, 9 years or whatever, from 2014 to 2022, the increases that we see in those years, it took us all those years to have an increase of $161 million in valuation change. But in 1 year, between 2022 and 2023, we increased by 186 million. So kind of, I call it an anomaly, and the assessor's office agreed. I was able to talk to them today regarding some calculatory numbers that I would like to have. So we kind of had a good laugh together because they don't have them. And I'll talk about those, I think, coming up. So just to explain this chart and to explain what all the numbers mean and things like that. So you'll see the levy rate, and our current levy rate, if you go down to 2023, is 69 cents per thousand value of your property. So that's what you have. So if you have a $500,000 property, that's time 500,000 is times by 69 cents, some decimal points. And then that equals what you pay a year to this district. Now, all taxing districts are pretty much the same that have levies, that the levy is calculated off a percentage. So I'm assuming that would go along with like the cemetery district here, parks district, the water district. Please correct me if I'm speaking incorrectly, but I think the water district has a levy too, but I think they might be governed different and have different regulations than we do. But so kind of take it to point that taxing districts, all of them gets mathematically equated somehow, which equals the amount of money we get in our revenue per year. So back in 2010, we had a 40-cent levy or 44-cent levy. I think it was a 44-cent levy, or we went for a 44-cent levy. Anyway, we ended up, the taxpayers voted that in, and we basically doubled our levy back in 2010. That gave us just over $500,000 at that time. And then we started putting away a lot of money. And over those years, since then, we've been able to put into revenue reserve capacity of around 1.1 million. Now that includes our expense account as well. Is that correct, Patty, or is that separate? You have to unmute yourself.
Pardon me, what was that question?
So the question is the 1.1 million that we basically have in reserve capacity, that includes everything, including expense accounts and everything else.
Yes.
Is that correct? Yeah.
That is our total cash on hand, yes.
Yeah, so 1.1 million sounds like a lot of money until you buy a fire truck that's $500,000 or more. And then you're down to half of that. And that's just for one capital infrastructure need. So back to this chart. In 2014, you'll see that the community valuation was 587 million. Well, that has jumped to 2023 of 935 million. Between 2014 and 2022, that was 161 with 2 years of devaluation, which were in 2016 and 2017, as everybody can see on the chart. We were devalued. Now, let me explain how the levy rate works. So right now, we're at a 69-cent levy rate with a valuation of 935 million. Back in 2014, we had 587 million community valuation. So our levy rate was much higher to get us the amount of money per se for the 84 cents that was approved back in 2010. And that made 84.5 cents, 84 cents, just use the round numbers that I'm projecting. So we were getting so much money from that levy that was approved back in 2010. And every year, the levy rate, whether we get increased valued or devalued as a community, the levy rate adjusts to give us at least 100% of the previous year's income plus 1%. So you can see 535,000 in 2014 gave us revenue, our spending revenue, what we would bring in by taxes for a budget of $535,000. Well, in 2015, it went up by 12 million. So that dropped our levy rate. So when our valuation goes up, our levy rate drops, because if we kept, let's say we kept a 90-cent levy rate and our valuation is now 935 million, we wouldn't be having this discussion, because we'd have a lot more money coming in because of that levy rate. But because our levy was set back in 2010 at a certain rate and gave us a certain value of money since 2010, every year the levy has had to adjust regardless of devaluation or increase in valuation to give us 100% plus 1% over the last year's revenue that the county would bring in. So if you go down through, and people are saying, well, some of those numbers throughout the years don't equal exactly 1%. Well, our financial manager, Patty Markell, she explained last year that the truth is or the objective fact is that the 1% really isn't a 1%. It ends up being like a 0.98 or a 0.09 or whatever be the case from the county. It's really never, I don't know if in my time we've had a true 1%. Patty, have you ever experienced with District 7 or anything like that, a true 1%?
No, we're always under.
Okay. So we're never a true 1%. So if we would have 1% in 2014, then the next year we'd get like $5,300 for that 1% increase. And by law, that is all we can increase our budget every year is by 1%. So between 2014 and 2023, you can see that our revenue has only increased by about $113,000 during that period of time. And our expenses have obviously grown exponentially beyond the 1%. So if we have a CPI or the increase in cost of goods and everything else is 4% a year, we can only increase our budget by law once our levy is set without an increase in levy or a voted bond, something like that, by 1%. So we're losing 3% a year every year, basically. And if but you can see that we steadily increased throughout those years, but some years are more than others. Now you go to the years that are bigger. So the 2016 and 2017. So 2016 we had 552,000. 2017, our revenue stream went up basically $17,000. Okay, so why $17,000? Well, we get the 100% last year's plus 1%. So the 1% would have been around $5,500. And then the additional comes in at new construction, any type of, Patty, I forget the language you used, refund to the district. That would be the language, is that correct? So refund to the district from the previous years would be added into that. So that's why you see sometimes it's more than 1%, but you have to understand that 1%, the new construction, we don't know that final number when we do our budgets in November and send them off to the county for December approval. The county doesn't have that final number to us. So even though we have 596,000 in 2018, our budget may have only been set at, 584,000 because we didn't know what new construction was going to be or anything like that, and we don't project those things. So just so you understand those funds. Now for the levy rate, again, when our valuation goes up, our levy rate goes down, and the cost of living and everything, expense, operating costs keep going up beyond the 1%. So we start losing value of our levy basically from the year that it's put into effect. And it gets eroded over time with inflation and, again, cost of doing business and the things that we need to purchase. So we're at a cusp now that since 2010, we're now in 2023, looking to potentially put a levy measure on the ballot in November for an increase starting in 2024. to plan for our capital facilities plan, this is online for the public to view. Basically a $4 million capital facility need structure that we have to replace heavy infrastructure and other capital items over the next 13 years. So does anybody have any questions on this chart that is on the meeting? Public can come in as well.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Pat.
Okay, that 1% thing is kind of interesting because I was actually looking at the 3 tax districts in Point Roberts today, and all of them are all over the board in terms of the 1% being added. Does Patty know why it isn't exactly 1%?
Patty?
You know, I'm trying to see the best way to,
I have an easy way to answer that, and I'll just say legislators.
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, go ahead, Patty. That would be my.
No, that's okay. I was just gonna grab my levy folder. If you don't mind, just.
Yeah,
a
go ahead.
moment.
That's fine.
Because I talked to Kathy Ziegler at the assessor's auditor's office, assessors, whichever one it was. And she's the one that sets those levies. And she said the only thing that affects them is whether or not a district took the 1%, didn't take the 1%, or had bank capacity, so they were able to do more than 1% in one or two or up to 6 years.
Sure. If you remember, I don't know when it started, but I want to say maybe 2013, 14, 15, we banked capacity for a while. We did not take that. And then as we started to erode and we started seeing the cost, we started taking the banked capacity. So I believe 2014, 15, 16, 17, somewhere in there, you'll see that we didn't take the 1%. We only took 100% of the previous year. And then starting maybe 3 or 4 years later, we started taking maybe 102%, 103%, because we had that banked capacity and we were trying to catch up on what we were seeing as an erosion of the levy. So, yeah, so Patty, go ahead.
And I have one other question.
Go ahead.
Yes,
Okay.
go ahead, Pat.
So my understanding, according to Kathy, is that when a district requests that 1%, and basically they're presenting their total budget based upon that 1%, that goes to the county council, which approves it. Who would be responsible at the fire district to do that?
Well, the commissioners approve the budget and approve the 101%. So the percentage that is provided by the county. The county sends us a sheet every year with how much money we can take lawfully. And that is sent to Patty and myself, and that is distributed to the commissioners. And then those calculations are basically already made for us from, it might be Kathy, because I've spoken to Kathy on many occasions too, and so has Patty. But if Patty can send me one of those, we can show you what that document looks like and show you. But the calculations are already done by the county. We approve those calculations if we choose to take the 1%.
Well, I'll probably have to talk to her again. The reason why is that the Parks Board, they increased their levy to 125,000. I think it was like, I don't know, 2017 or something like that. And they took the 1% for a number of years, but then, and it got up to like 132,000. And then in 2021 or 2022, it dropped back to 125,000. And so they've sort of like forgone about $26,000 worth of tax revenue because it looked like someone sent in a figure 125,000. That's what we want because that was the original.
I'm wondering if they took a temporary multi-year lid lift, because that would have put them into that situation where they could have increased for a number of years. And then at the end of that lid lift cycle, they drop back down to what it was prior to the lid lift in place. And that's called a temporary multi-year lid lift. And that would
Yeah,
have,
that's,
that would have put
that-
them in a situation.
that's a good point, because they had gone up from 48,000 to 125,000, but maybe at the time they only thought they needed it for 3 years or something.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't know, Pat, but that's, if they drop back down, then they could go up to a certain point, but then if it was temporary, they would have dropped down to what it was prior to the levy going into effect.
Yeah, weird. I'll see what I can find, but as you say, they present you with the figure. So
Yeah, I don't know, Pat.
okay.
Patty?
Hey, Chief.
Yeah, Bill.
I think the year it occurred in was 2020. In fact, interesting that Pat brings it up, because we are actually investigating that right now and talking to the auditor and doing some investigation why it went from 131 something to 125.
So Pat,
So,
Bill,
you
can you
know-
tell, you sit on the Parks Board, just so everybody knows?
Oh, stand by. Excuse me, Chief?
You sit on the Parks Board, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so just so people know where
So-
you're speaking from, yeah.
Sure. And I was just literally talking this afternoon with someone that's looking into that to find out, what's behind what happened in 2020. So I'll have a better answer. And if Pat's looking for some information, he can get a hold of me, or I'll direct him to the person that's actually doing the investigation, who's been speaking to the auditor. So we'll figure it out. And your observations are correct. I don't know the reasoning, but whatever it is, I'm getting down to the bottom of it and find out why. So.
Are you okay? Thank you very much, Bill, for stating that. Appreciate it. Patty, do you have anything to add?
Yes. So Chief, I just sent you an email from Kathy Ziegers. I just forwarded it to you. It has 3 attachments. If you are able to pull that up and open up the middle attachment, it says fire number 5 levy amounts. And we could show them this is the main form that we received from Kathy at the county. And this is what our 1% is based on this information we received from them. They let us know what our 1% equates to, which in 22 for 2023 taxes was the 0.94702. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for
And it
sending.
references the top, which is the IPD factor, which is the implicit price deflator, basically on property levies. It shows the large increase. However, and then the second line down, the 634,256.59, that was the previous year's levy. So that was our 2022 levy. And then there was a small refund amount, which was the $332.88 that took us to that year's levy in 2022, the total. And then with the 1%, which is the 0.94702, which would give us $6,009.69. In addition to the previous year's levy, which was the 634,589.47, tototals our final levy for 2023, which was $640,599.16. And that is what we base our resolutions on when we complete those at the end of the year for the commissioners to approve. I go ahead and I send a copy of that along with another form that I fill out to the county council for approval. And then once all of that gets finalized, then the county issues us our final levy limitation worksheet that states what our actual levy is for the year. Which is 0.6934. It goes out several digits, but the
The
0.69 cents basically that you reference on the spreadsheet.
Right.
So I hope that helps to better make sense of seeing what we see. And this is information directly that we received from the county based on their calculations. And then this does not reference the new construction. However, as Chief noted, that is added on after the fact. Generally, it's been consisting of usually an additional around $3,500. But that's give or take.
Yeah, we've never had new construction of 10 grand or more. Is that correct?
Correct. Not that I have seen.
Yeah, that'd be a pretty good year.
Yes.
Okay. So these numbers are created by the county. I mean, we don't come up with these numbers just off of our head, top of our heads or anything like that. The calculations are provided to us, and then the commissioners take a look at those calculations and approve to take the 1% or to bank that capacity for future use. So right now, we do not have any banked capacity for this district. We are even on that. Okay, let me get back to
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the question. So coming back to this, it was a great question, and I'm glad I had the opportunity, because actually I was dysfunctional is the word, or there's a better word out there. I wasn't covering it. And it had really passed over me that I should cover this chart to explain the valuation when the valuation goes up and how much money. So there was a perception out there that we went up 186 million in 1 year, that, oh my goodness, the fire district should be swimming in money, and a comment was made that, does that in 186 million, does that give you like $100,000 more a year? Well, the opportunity I had last meeting was to explain that it does not. Our valuation and what we get in fluctuates with the levy rate. Whether we go down or up, our levy rate must provide us at least the ability of 100% of last year's funding plus 1%. So it doesn't matter if it drops 200 million next year, our levy will go probably back up to 85 cents, 87 cents, but that'll bring us in whatever, $655,000, the 1%, plus 100% plus 1%. Okay, so just so I'm happy to explain this further, but I think in general terms, everybody can understand that if the valuation goes up of the community, our levy rate goes down to only give us 101% ability to last to the previous year's revenue. Now, again, our budget may be $640,000, but the actual revenue we get in is larger than that over the years, or over that year. All of that goes into reserve. If we get back taxes, that goes into reserve. So we don't change. The only time that we've changed our approved budget was during the pandemic, when we had to take funds out of reserve and add those to our operational budgetary lines in order to overcome the cost of the pandemic and what we were providing. Okay, so that's the first chart I wanted to go over. And please, if you have questions, don't hesitate to email me. I love coffee. I drink way too much coffee, but I'll still get coffee with you. Just give me 1 second, please. Apologize for the delay. Okay, so just to quickly review these charts. And again, I hope to have these posted online with some adjustments most likely. I'll probably add in a $200,000 valued home as well. So we have a 200, 300, maybe a 400,000 and 500,000. I may be removing the 750 and a million from this projection, but because the home values, the majority of the homes here are between that 200,000 to $500,000 range potentially. So if you would like me to leave the 750 a million, please let me know by email or giving me a call, just so that there's some context within the comparisons. So starting out with the $300,000 home, these are the levy rate increases if we decided to take either a 20-cent levy up to a 60-cent levy here. And for a $300,000 home, 69-cent levy is the current one we're paying. For a $300,000 home, they're paying $208 a year for emergency services through the fire district. So if we did a 20-cent levy to that would increase their cost by $68 a year. 40-cent levy would be 128 years, and their total would be $328 at that point per year. 50-cent levy would be $358 total with a $150 increase for a $300,000 home. So these are the increases to what it would cost in addition per year for certain amounts over here. This is the amount of the levy, and this is what the total cost would be for a $300,000 home. So if you take that over to the other column, $500,000, and we start out with the 69-cent levy that we are currently paying, the $500,000 property owner pays $346 and change to the fire district for emergency services. If we took a 20-cent levy, that would increase by $100. If we took a 40-cent levy, that would go up by $200. And if we went all the way to a 60-cent levy, it would go up by $300. So from $346 that they're currently paying to take a 60-cent levy, it would cost them $646 at our current levy rate for the property value. And then you can take that down to the $750,000 or $1 million. Does anybody have any questions on this chart? And again, I'll add in a $200,000 home and most likely a $400,000 home too. So we might have two full columns here if I keep the 750 and $1 million. The next chart here, and I'll expand it out. I don't know how it's coming across on your guys' end here. But the current community assessed value is $935 million. That increased to $186 million over 2022, not an anomaly. And when I spoke to the assessor's office today, to try to give some type of objectivity to working with a calculator for a multi-year limit factor increase and saying, okay, the assessed value we assume is going to increase 3% a year over the next 6 years. Well, when I asked that question, again, at the early set of this meeting, I said we had a really good laugh, and we did, because they have nothing to predict that. I was told that, they don't have a crystal ball. One thing that was said was there could be a possibility of devaluation over the coming 2 or 3 years. And but nobody knows. So they don't have any numbers to provide me that for the AV calculation in this calculator, is it going to go up 3% a year? Is it going to go up 4% a year, 2% a year? They have no numbers to provide me to try to help make accurate projections on where the valuation of this community is going to go. And in a way, I understand that, right? Because they don't know what is going to happen in the next 6 months. I don't know when they make those decisions, if they make them early. So it's an interesting dynamic when I have a really good laugh with the assessor's office. And the person that I spoke to was very nice and was very honest and stated that they would keep on it. And if they received any information from the deputy assessor or anything like that, they have used in the past, we can always use past compliance. Does that make sense? So we know since 2014 what our community evaluation has done, up or down. Does that make sense to everybody? So some years it went up, some years it went down. Now you can add all those up and divide them by 9 and come up with a projection of the common increase in community value through those years was. And maybe that's 3%, maybe that's 4%. And then we could plug that into this calculator. But again, those are very subjective, and we don't know until the numbers come out. So that's what makes it hard to calculate with. This shows what a levy would be as in value to the district in additional funds, depending on the level of levy increase we would take. So the first line, the value is 935 million of the community. That's the assessed value of the community. At our current levy rate of 69 cents and decimal points, we have a revenue base of 648,000. That is what our taxable levy is right now for the fire district. Now, the other taxing districts in this community have the same spreadsheet, right? They could create the same spreadsheet because they have the same numbers. Their valuation would be different, higher or lower than this district's, but the calculations would most likely be the same calculations. The levy rate may not be the same, but calculations would be the same. So if we take a levy rate, right now we have $648,000 that we're able to put into operational usage. And that includes putting into our reserve capacities and everything else. I'll remind everybody that last year we only had $11,000 left. Basically, I think $5,000 up out of our operational funds. And then the additional 6 was from other areas. But we had $11,000 that we put into capital reserve. So if we took a 30-cent levy, we'd get an additional $280,000 built to our base of 648,000. It would take it up to 928,000. If we took a 45-cent levy, we'd get an additional 420,000. It would take our levy base up to 1,069,000, all the way up to 60 cents, which would give us another 561,000, bringing our base levy capacity, taxable levy, up to 1.2 million. So in our capital facilities plan, we basically have $4 million that we have outlaid for infrastructure and purchases over the next 13 years. And our purpose for this increase is to be able to fund those increases while maintaining our current level of service and adding services in the coming decade, decade and a half, 2 decades. And finding the number that will allow us to do that without having to come back to the taxpayers in a decade and say we need more money, or 5 years and say we need more money. Now, nobody has a crystal ball. We have no idea where we could have another 2008 crash. Nobody has any idea where things are going to go. But we're going to do our best, and working with the brilliant minds that I've been able to have discussions with, and working with the minds of my commissioners and the brilliancy that they have in business management and operating expenses. We're coming up with a pretty good solution, I think. So what we would like to do is put over $300,000 away into reserve capacity to start saving up in addition to our 1.1 million, which again, it's up to the commissioners how far we draw that down. If we take it down to 500,000, if we take it down to 400,000, so that would mean we could take $600,000 or $700,000 out of that reserve capacity, still have enough to cover any type of critical emergencies within the district, and start utilizing those funds immediately to overcome our infrastructure needs. We've projected the best we can our needs. Obviously, other things will be coming up during the next 10 years and beyond. And then speaking on, trying to have the capacity to start making changes to the station within that period of time or after that period of time for the diversity, equity, and inclusion that is needing to be done, not only in our agency, but also all agencies in the state and around this country. So if we took a 45-cent levy, we have two choices of how we get there to the 45-cent levy. The 45-cent levy, we can take it all at once. We can put it on the ballot as we will take a 45-cent levy, and starting in 2024, we're going to have a budget of $1,069,000. That would allow us to have additional income. And again, please understand that this will fluctuate with valuation of the community, whether that goes up or that goes down. But that would give us the true ability to put away 300,000 plus into reserve capacity. Again, we have 4 million worth of projects that are currently slated to be completed during the next 13 years. And 300 plus thousand of that 420, it would allow us to put additional into the operational funds as well to start overcoming some of the things that our volunteers do not currently have access to, and to also provide more programs to the community, outlay our community risk reduction programs, bolster them up, and at least maintain things at this point, because we are spending the revenue currently of the 648,000. Again, we had 11,000 left. So I would consider that to be in a critical area or a concerned area. And we need to move ahead with a plan to sustain our financial future. So if we took a 40-cent levy, so 45-cent levy, we can take it all at once. Okay, we can get it, put it on the ballot measure and say, we are increasing, the levy. We would like to increase the levy by your vote to, it's a $1.14, from 69 cents to $1.14. And you can see the values that it would bring in, and it would start to sustain and help us immediately start doing capital facility projects because of the value of those funds. The other way that we can take a 45-cent, and this is more convoluted, but it's a less of an impact on the taxpayer than hitting them with the adjustment of $200, $300, $400, $500 of increase in 1 year, depending on the value of their home. So I'll go back real quick to this. And so just to show you what a 45-cent levy would do to certain property values. So a $500,000 home, it would increase the cost of their taxes for emergency services about $226, it looks like, from $346 to $571. So it'd be a $226 increase for that amount of property. Everybody can do the calculations going on down, that from 520 to 857. Again, that's over a little over $300 for a property value of that. $300,000 home, from what they're currently paying at 208 to a 40-cent levy, it'd be $128, about $135 increase for a 45-cent levy, up to 343. So that's what it's going to be, the impact. And I know people want to know what the impact is, what they're going to have to come up with. So back to this is, the first way, again, the first way is take the levy all at once, 45-cent levy. We start that 1st of January, 2024, and then we have that new base. Now, this new base of 1,069,000 is going to be what the 1% therefore is taken off of from that point. So this would be a permanent lid lift to that 1,069,000. We would start accruing extra income into the district, into the reserves, to start overcoming our infrastructure needs and sustaining this district into the future. So that's one way. The second way would be take a levy lid lift of whatever percentage, $1.09, $1.14, and we want to get to, okay, a certain amount by the end of 6 years within this growth factor increase. Now, we can do a growth factor for 6 years. We can do a growth factor for 3 years if we wanted to. But let's say we spread it out over 6 years. This is a calculatory chart that we currently have in our possession to try to work with. But we don't want to know what the increase, and it's a guess, what the increase in devaluation or increased valuation of the community would be for those calculations. I've kept it at 100%. So I state that, the valuation of the community will not change over the 6 years, which is most likely incorrect. It most likely will, up or down. But I don't want to put numbers I don't have, technically being able to project that, because that's really, if we have another anomaly between 23 and 24, and it goes up as critical as it did, or half of what it did, I mean, that's way out of the norm of the last 9 years. So growth factor increase, let me speak to that. So we could say, okay, let's take a 30-cent levy or a 40-cent levy to start it off. And we set the value to that. So that would be a 99-cent levy or $1.09 to begin with. And we want to reach the valuation of $1,069,000 at the end of that growth factor years. So years 2 through 6 would have a very small increase to the taxpayers' property taxes. Over those years, it would be absorbed over the next, the years 2 through 6 to get us to the valuation of $1,069,000 at the end of those 6 years. Now that's going to fluctuate again with the assessed value of the community. So by the end of that 6 years, we could be at 114 or $1.14 per thousand, or it may have us at $1.16 per thousand because the valuation change in the community up or down to reach that $1,069,000. Now, we don't get the money immediately. So if we took a 30-cent levy immediately, so we went up to 99 cents from 69, and then we wanted to get to $1,069,000 by the end of that growth factor 6 years, it would calculate all that out. And the immediate impact to someone with a $500,000 home or a $3,000 home, so a 30-cent impact would basically be $298, so $90. So 30 cents for the first year in taxes would be $90. A 40-cent levy would be $128. So that's the impact that they had the first year. The next years past that would be split up and would have increases to get us to the amount we chose or that we wanted to get to by the end of that limit factor increase period. And that would be a permanent multi-year lid lift. And that would be our new base. Whatever this would be chosen, the 1 million, 1.1, 1.22 thousand, whatever that new base that we would deem necessary to sustain the ability to run operations and to continue completing our capital facilities plans over the next 13 years plus. Now, people ask, what if I get a grant? So right now I have 2 grants out, both over $300,000, and they're part of my capital facilities plan. So they're part of that 4 million. So let's say I get one of those grants. We'll be blessed if I get one of those grants, and I'm really hopeful. They're starting to come out now. Just this last week, the grant cycle that I put in for is now being awarded. Thank you. I can't, that word, awarded. So awarded. And we haven't popped up yet on the radar. We have not gotten an award yet, but this will be going on for weeks to come. And I'm very hopeful that the radio grant will come through, 300,000+. The grant that I'm 50-50 on would be the grant for our ambulance to replace our 1991 ambulance. That meets no safety structure or elements of current built ambulances at this time. If nobody has seen it, if you haven't seen it, come in, I'll show you the ambulance. We still have hooks from the ceiling that's not even allowed in municipal ambulances anymore, but hooks from the ceiling to put leaders up there to transport more patients than just one. So interesting, but let's say I get one of those. So that comes off of our capital facility needs. So we save $350,000. And people ask, well, where does that money go? Well, that money goes directly back into reserve capacity. So that reserve capacity, again, allows us to overcome our capital facility needs, do more capital facility projects as they come up over the next 10, 15 years. And it also helps us extend out the levy that's currently in place. So that's what we do. That money just doesn't disappear. That money is, off the table, but it allows us to save that as well. So I just wanted to make sure people understand that we're not buying houses in Hawaii with it. Yeah, or taking elaborate trips on our private jet or anything like that. All the money that you provide us as taxpayers, we turn back around to provide you the best services we can possibly do for you. So, and that's my desire, and my goal is to continue doing that while adding more services to support this community in the years to come. So the little notes that we have down below, so the growth factor increase is just that. So we have one way, take it immediately all at once, or we have the way to take a lesser levy in the beginning with a growth factor increase and steps of increasing taxation up to the amount that we would like to have to sustain this organization, again, for the next decade or even 2 decades, depending on how things go. And again, nobody has a crystal ball. So at least I would want to have it last as long as the last one, 13 years. We're at 13 years, 12 years, 13 years. I would hope we could get, 15 years, but, operating off of hope is sometimes difficult. That's what grants are. The goal would be from my office to extend that as far as possible. And I would like to reach that 15-year mark at least with this levy increase. So we wouldn't have to come back to the taxpayers for that period of time, unless, again, something catastrophic happens, something like that, and it depletes us completely. No one can plan for those things, but that's where we're at. So those, that's where we're at.
Would you like to have us do today?
Well, I think we need to mull. Okay, are we going to from my office and from what I envision and the calculations and everything else like that, potentially adding more personnel, hiring someone or 2 people for permanent positions in the agency, or bringing on more volunteers, that we need to be at or extremely close to that 400,000 mark with whatever we do additional income coming into this district in order to put away 300,000 plus a year to start hitting the capital items as we have laid out. Now, again, that's a plan. And I got some good suggestions, some great suggestions that, we're very visible when it comes to emergency medical here. And we run more emergency medical than we usually do fire. And to move up, if I don't get the ambulance grant this year, is to move that up, move up emergency medical equipment to sooner years than later years to provide that value to the community. And I agree to some of those, changes in the capital facilities plan. And those would have to be agreed upon by the commissioners to flip those around and to move fire stuff down, or to move, the trucks up, all trucks, fire and medical, up high, and then move all additional stuff, roof and those types of things, down lower. But we may be able to, depending on how much capacity we have, we can move into and the reserve capacity that we'll be using to some degree. We'll have approximately $1 million, depending on the levy that is chosen to take, whether immediately. If we take a growth factor increase, it's going to extend out the time for our capital facilities plan, because we won't have as much as much money going into reserve on a yearly basis. We get there over 6 years, right? So, you know, if we took a growth factor increase of 40 cents, we could probably do 300,000 or just below that going into reserve capacity and providing an additional 50,000+ into operational capacity for the things that I currently can't do for our volunteers. So, and a lot of that comes in PPE, uniform protection, WAC requirements, those types of things. And then just overcoming obsolete equipment that we have that needs to be replaced as well. So, in my perspective, we need to be at a 40 or 45 cent levy. And if you push me one direction or the other, I would say a 45-cent levy. Now, do we take that at once, or do we allow some flexibility and do that over a period of years? So we start out with a 30-cent levy and then build up to around that 45-cent levy. Again, there's really no way to calculate that out. We may be at 118 cents by the time we get done with the 6-year limit factor increase, just because of the AV evaluation, if it goes up or down, and how that affects all of that. To get to the 1,069,000. I mean, realistically, that's the way it goes. And then again, that would be our new base. But if we took a 40-cent levy, so we took a 40-cent levy, a 374,000 projected, we could potentially put away 300,000 even, and then the rest could go into operational capacity. Anything saved out of operational capacity would obviously go back into capital or reserve capacity at the end of the year and starting the new budget. Obviously that 1.6 or the 1,069,000, if that's the level that we choose to hold, that will go up. Once we reach that level, that will go up 1% every year from that capacity. So every year from that point forward, we're adding an additional 10,000, right, onto that could automatically go into reserve capacity too. And again, the growth that we're going to have in our reserve capacity is going to overcome everything we currently have, the things that we have not projected that may need to be done and most likely need to be done. A pole building expansion to the fire hall. If we expand the fire hall for separate bedrooms for our females and males, and those that come into this district that want their privacy in bedrooms, right now we share bedrooms with bunk beds, and we have adults sleeping in those bunk beds. Males and females do like, I like to have my private room when I go down to District 7 and work down there. I like to have my privacy. I don't like people walking in on me when I'm changing or, anything like that. That would be a multi-million-dollar project to extend out the fire station above the apparatus bay apron, because we would have to retrofit if not the entire fire station, that side of the fire station with a sprinkler system. So putting a pole building next to the community center, or the community center, not the community center, Bill, not the community center. Sorry, don't report that. Next to the clinic, to add us a couple more bays for additional apparatus storage. Because if I do end up buying a brush truck in the future that is not a skid like our current one that can be taken out during the winter, that is going to have to be held inside during the winter. Otherwise, those components will freeze. So that's just planning ahead. The other thing that we have to think about is any increased services that we want to provide for the clinic building. Because right now, we allow them to utilize the air conditioning from our training room through the back door of the clinic with a fan in order to cool it down during the summer, because they don't have air conditioning in there. And I will say that I don't want any patient, especially our senior patients, to go in there and it's 80 degrees inside the clinic while they're trying to get help or having a medical condition and they're having difficulty breathing. That's just going to make it worse. So we need to look into putting in mini split systems, into the clinic for air conditioning and heat. So they have a consistent atmosphere in there that's comfortable for their patients. But we also need to be able to put that upstairs for the firefighters, because it's either freezing upstairs or it's deathly hot upstairs. And the window units we currently have are not doing the job to the degree that they need to. So a mini split would be more economical as well over time for us to put into upstairs for the firefighters. This is the only room that this station has that has air conditioning. Chief Shields brought up a good point. We may be able to put more, what do you call them? Taps or something that could go off our current air conditioning unit, and we could put vents in upstairs in the training room. And I don't know if it would have the capacity to do next door too, because I don't know if they're going to like the temperature we have this set for, right? They may want to control their own temperature, but that's for air conditioning purposes and not for heat. So I think a mini split does both heat and air conditioning. And make it easy. But that's something we have to consider too, is the clinic is part of this building, and to do what we can to improve that environment, since we are the landlords, and to keep it nice for patients that come there is part of our responsibility as well. So the molding has to be at what rate we want to increase and how to increase it, either immediately or over a period of time.
It would seem to me that we need to decide how we want to increase it before we decide how much.
I think both come with
They
challenges.
come together.
Yeah, so one gets us to 45 cents immediately. The other one gets us to that $1.14 over a number of years. So 45-cent increase is $1.14, going up to $1.14 per thousand valuation. Okay, and 40-cent increase is $1.09 per thousand valuation. A 30-cent increase is 99 cents per thousand valuation. So that's where we have to decide, because we could go at a 30 cents impact, little. We don't get the money though. Now we're not able to meet that $300,000 cusp that we would potentially like to have to build up reserve capacity to support our infrastructure needs. But if we take a 30-cent increase, we get that $280,000 starting in January or next year, right? Projected. Now that could change with valuation. Does that make sense? So that goes into effect. And then every year from that point, to get to that $1.14, we increase like $40,000 or $50,000 a year, which compounds into maybe a $15 increase to a $300,000 homes taxes. So that's on the chart that we can. That chart that's a lot of information on this chart. So I just don't want to put it out there. But for a $500,000 home, it may be a $30 increase to my taxes every year, right? Up to that $1.14 to get us the base that we want to have at the end. So that's going to be a base projectly of $1 million to get us to a sustainable income stream.
So, we can't discuss this outside of this meeting, so we need to do it here. And I think I'd like to hear from the two of you, which direction you would like to go in. So who wants to start?
Go ahead and speak up.
I'm just wondering. In these times, it's gonna be difficult to do anything past it. So, and when you do two things, that one to me would be very difficult.
So the growth factor is one thing. So the measurable state that we're increasing to a 99-cent immediately, if we take a 30-cent increase, and over the next years, we increase it to $1.14, or to the equivalent of a base of 1 million whatever funds. And then that capacity, the 2 through 6 years limit factor, is adjusted to meet that goal of that 1 million plus dollars that we would like to have as a new base, that we consider to be enough to put away money for our infrastructure needs, plus serve the future of this district and anything else that may come up. Obviously, there's going to be more infrastructure that needs to be done, but that's not even on the table yet.
I think the simpler, better.
So you're wanting to go with a straight cent increase versus a growth factor measure.
And do you have a sense for the amount? It goes together.
Not yet.
And this is something you can mull. You know, you have all the information, we can meet individually to discuss which the effects of a 45 cent, 50 cent. But the public approved a 40-cent levy back in 2010.
Right.
Things have changed over the last 13 years. And in 2010, we weren't thinking about the necessity of all this infrastructure.
No, but the dollar
Needs.
value was different.
And the economics were different in 2010 as well. Now, I don't think that was on the end of the 2008, downturn and everything else. So that was a bad time financially for everybody too, I would assume. But we have different things thinking about that we have to put in place and on the radar now that we didn't have to think about in 2010. And that's all of this infrastructure. 13 years ago, we weren't thinking about replacing one of our trucks because they were still young.
Yeah.
Right. So we're in a different dilemma now of having to tackle two things with the income stream that is chosen.
Yeah, it's much more difficult in our environment today versus 10 years ago.
So I would say, if we take a 45 cent increase to make sure we can put away that $300,000+ a year, we might be able to do it with a 40-cent increase. We might be able to put away $300,000 a year there too. Straight away, then it would be listed like that on the measure, is that we're wanting to basically increase to 99 cents or to $1.09 or to $1.14, bringing in a certain amount of money and increase to the district to sustain current operations and future expectations of capital infrastructure. So obviously it's not going to say that exactly, but
Well, to me, things have changed. I'm seeing a lot of bills that are to put one fire person properly dressed, doing all the things that we're doing right
Yes.
now. It's not the same budget.
oh no, because we don't have up to,
When you look at the costs involved.
yeah, I mean,
It's
it is realistically right at $6,000 to outfit a firefighter appropriately with protective gear. And that is not Cadillac, that is not Lamborghini, that's pretty middle of the road, good Honda, Toyota gear. But in addition to that, you're wearing a $6,000 air pack on your back. So when you look at a firefighter going into a structure, that person's worth just within the equipment they're wearing about $12,000.
But it's our reputation too. If you want to keep getting people, and we're talking about volunteers, we have to keep up with it. Because if we don't, we're on a downhill trajectory. By keeping us level, you've got more of an ability to probably get people to want to be here.
Yeah, and I would agree with that because our many young men and women come here because of what we offer. And it's just not based on that we help them get hired on the mainland, right? Or that we have a good reputation and they get to put that on their resume. It is also part of what we offer them in experience here.
Yeah.
And professionally, it would be criminal for me to send somebody into a structure with improper gear. I can't do that. So if we get to a point to where we've been blessed that we've been able to get private grants for our bunker gear over the last 2 or 3 years. And that's been from the Colton Foundation. That's supported this community with a lot of grants. And that doesn't guarantee that they're going to be able to do that next year or the year after or the year after. And then for me to put in an AFG grant, for replacement of gear I mean, that's a 9-month process of time frame, basically of the application process and then the application being approved, us getting the money, us purchasing, because we're 90 days out to 120 days out on bunker gear. When we order it, the firefighter doesn't get it for 4 months. It's not a turnaround, you know, and that's because of the supply issues we're still having.
Buy a truck. That's how-
Well, to build a new truck, it's 2 years.
Yeah, just.
Yeah.
You don't just get it.
No, if I ordered a truck today, I probably wouldn't get it if we had it built for this district, custom built, that it was custom because of our needs in this geographical location. That may be different than a city that can get something off the line, right? I wouldn't get it until 2025 by the manufacturers that I've spoken to.
It's not just planning for my next car. You know what?
Well, I'd like to, very few people drive a 32-year-old car. I mean, there's some Model A's out there. There's some, you know, there's some beautiful cars in this community. But when you start thinking about it, yes, the engines are built to last maybe 1 million miles, right? Because they're Detroit diesels. They're the same engines that go into semis and stuff like that, right? Big trucks. But it's the vehicle that starts falling apart and becomes obsolete with compartmentation and safety factors. And then pumping for the pump and how we operate the pump and the efficiencies that we lose by not replacing that truck that's 32 years old.
One other, take a look at the hoses and so on. I mean, what does it take for maintenance to just keep those hoses in line so you can actually use those?
Yeah, every year, every foot of our hose that we have in this organization that's on our trucks and in storage has to be tested for WSRB. If we don't test it on a yearly basis, our WSRB rating will get docked if we don't have those records. It's like if we don't weigh our apparatus every single year, we get docked on WSRB rating because they look at those records.
No one really understands the cost of what those hoses each year.
So the hose that we hook up to the hydrants, the big hose, the yellow hose that comes off our big trucks, 100 feet of that is over $1,000. So every year we have hose that goes down in our testing. And Chief Shields agrees with me on that every year we have 100, 200, 300, 400 feet of hose that gets put out of service because it's too old. It's not meeting the pressure standards anymore. It has holes in it, everything else. There's sometimes we can repair to a degree, but when the hose is in the middle of a 50-foot or the hole is in the middle of a 50-foot section, that's unrepairable. So that hose goes out of service. So then we have to replace that hose. Well, when you think of the big yellow hose that we hook into the hydrant and 100 feet of that is over $1,000, how many feet of a yellow do we have? We have 2,700 feet of that hose. So that hose is worth $27,000 in today's value. And we have to have hose. I mean, we have to have hose that reaches the end of the dock down at the marina. Because well, this year we've had 4 fires this year alone, right? 4 fires this year alone. And that's an anomaly as well. Yeah, we've had 4 fires, 4 structures, 4 3 travel trailers and a single wide. But you know, those are structures, those are livable structures. And when you start saying, well, you only get 4 fires a year, well, for us, that's a lot, right? And if we don't show up with everything we need on those fires, regardless, we will have people blaming us for the loss. Well, why didn't you have that? Why didn't you have this? Why didn't you have that? We have people that use both sides of the swords here. You know, we have people that complain because we drive fast with our lights and sirens on and going to an emergency. And they go, well, you drove too fast. You shouldn't be driving that fast. But then they call 911 the next week and they go, why didn't you come here sooner? Right? You took too long to get here. And we have those types of individuals in every community. But I got to say, this community understands, you know, to my perspective, that we are doing a job that is challenging to begin with, but even more challenging because of our geographical isolation that we have and the mutual aid that we don't have immediate effect from other agencies to come in and provide us assistance or to run calls in our district for us. We are a standalone agency that has to overcome things that Ferndale doesn't even think about, that North Whatcom doesn't even think about, that Seattle doesn't even have to worry with, right? Because they have built-in ground support. To get 12 fire trucks here would be a challenge for me from the main county if we had a major event, right? In any time, it would take an hour and a half to get that many apparatus here, because I would be pulling from probably as deep as Bellingham, if not further.
I'm not sure if people understand or enclave or exclave, where we're attached to another community and everything trying to get in or get out has
Right.
that difficulty. And I'm not, there's not many places like us in the US today.
Yeah, they're not, and I would agree with those statements that
So we're special.
we are a special case, and we finally got classified as a special case. It took us a year and a half, almost 2 years during the pandemic to get that classification. But we are considered very unique. But we have to understand that we have to support ourselves here for potentially hours before we'll get assistance, depending on the incident.
And that's where volunteers, everything.
And that comes down to having day volunteers, night volunteers, everything else, because right now we're very at risk during the day.
But
Weekday.
with just COVID, we really.
Yeah, if I didn't,
Having volunteers to actually put this together.
yeah, if we didn't have the team, and the additional volunteers that came out of the community, the COVID response would not have been anywhere near what it was. And that's because of the team, the members of this agency and of the community that came out and gave up their time. That's why that happened the way it did. And I can't thank every single person that was involved in that, their dedication to helping protect this community and stuff, and to my members. But volunteers can come and go. Volunteers do not have to stay on point. Volunteers do not have to be here. They can go on vacation, right? I can't hold them here. So we do a pretty good job within the WhatsApp on our phone that our volunteers let us know when they leave and go, so we can switch our plan, right? So if I have 4 volunteers and one of them leaves and goes off point, then I only have 3. Okay, now that calculatory stance on the next incident has to change. If we drop a fire, I have myself, Assistant Chief Shields, and an engineer. So we have 2 firefighters and a driver. That's what we have for immediate response in this community right now. Maybe Chief Shields is off point, so now I'm here with 3 other volunteers. I'm the only firefighter available, because our older volunteers are not firefighters. They're engineers and fire ground support personnel, and they're EMTs and advanced EMTs, they're medical personnel. But if we drop a structure and it's a rescue situation, I'm in, and I will go, and I will risk my life for that person that we know is savable when we arrive, and I'll go. But not many jurisdictions, really, I don't know any jurisdictions in this county that have that set up. I mean, Sumas is volunteer. They had to respond to a major flood in their area, that Abbotsford area, all of that. And their department, their volunteers did an incredible job out there. But they have the same hardships during the week days. It's hard for really any organization now put in the geographical isolation that we have. Sumas gets mutual aid from Emerson. They get mutual aid from other places, right? Glacier gets mutual aid from, Kendall, from those agencies. They get mutual aid. I mean, they have automatic aid agreements. We don't have the capability of having any of that.
We're 24/7 alone.
We're 24/7, and we have to sustain ourselves as emergency services agencies, as an emergency services agency for at least an hour, if not longer, depending on the incident. And DNR, wildfire incident, they're going to take an hour and a half probably to get here. I could request an air asset, and a helicopter would come in and start filling up out of the ocean, and start doing airdrops for us probably within 45 minutes. But that's still 45 minutes that we're a standalone agency. That's state paid, so that's taxes. They better not give me a bill because we don't have the money to that. So back to the levy. Can you speak up, Commissioner, please? Well,
Chief,
yes,
before you answer, can you summarize the question? I could not hear one word of it.
sure. So Commissioner Lester asked him, Commissioner Harper, if he had anything to add.
Mhm.
And Commissioner Harper has stated that he doesn't believe we should be on the more conservative side. Is that correct? We shouldn't be as conservative maybe, but a little bit more moderately aggressive to our approach to overcome our needs of the future, which is everything from A to Z in this agency, and staffing and that next 911 call that we have people that will go regardless of the hour of the day. I don't want to ever get to a point that it would be, I think, a breach of my office if I supported an area and felt comfortable that we got to an area to where we have 18 volunteers in this agency and we don't have anybody to go during the day. And if you call 911, maybe you get somebody, maybe you don't. We've never done that. And I don't plan on starting that process or that type of response pattern to this district. And we have a big financial burden ahead of us that we have to overcome. And, pay as you go. We can see where we're at in 6 years. And as was discussed last meeting, maybe a lesser voted bond at that time is something that could be considered. But if we go for it, it doesn't pass, and we need to have more support economically, then a non-voted bond would be that, but you have to have capacity out of your levy to support the payments of that non-voted bond. And as we've seen in the calculations, if we took a $2 million voted bond, the cost of that for this agency is $163,000 a year out of our levy revenue for a non-voted bond. We end up paying by the amortization of 20 years, we end up paying 1.2 million in interest at current interest rates. Let me preface that at the current 5.2 interest rate. Now, maybe in 6 years, that interest rate is back down to 3%, and we can save half that, right? But for me to be okay with going for a non-voted bond at 2 million and saying, yeah, I think it's okay that we end up paying 2 years of full revenue income on APR. I can't say that. I'm sorry, I can't take that. I can't say that I'm okay with 1.2 million in interest. Yeah, I think we've decided to go with a levy initially, right? And that's where we need to stay.
Coming from where we're coming, we should be doing the same thing because it was successful for the last 13 years. And if it is, we should be going on that route where we are a major resource for the safety of this community. So going with something that's proven to me.
The boards over the last however many years have been able to, let's say 2 decades, 20 years, I'll go before even my time here. The boards and the fire chiefs have done a good job with our ability to use a levy only, right? To overcome our operational expenses and capital infrastructure purchases that they deem necessary during that time. Now, I don't know of a plan before this plan. I think there was a plan, right? I think something was put together in 2010 or before. But I have a report somewhere in all my documents that we had a plan in place for something before. I'm sorry, I don't know if it was a capital facilities plan. I think we did have a capital. Linda, do you know? Do you remember?
Many years ago, there was a strategic plan. It was a 25-year plan. I helped Chief Mike, I can't remember his last name right now, prepare it. I'm thinking almost 20 years ago. So it would be reaching its expiration date now anyway. But yeah, it covered a number of things such as emergency response and some capital facilities needs.
Yeah, and 20 years ago, we're in a completely different environment now. And that's why I think it's important of the work that you all are doing, and we've agreed upon to do, is to revisit our plan every few years to make sure that it's on track, or if it needs to be adjusted and as up to date as possible, and not leave a 20-year plan just hang out there and think it's going to be good for 20 years. I think every 3 years or so, or 2 years, we need to look at it and just go, yep, it's still okay. We're still okay. And let's move forwards. But right now, our biggest thing is coming up with either taking the levy straight all at once, or having a smaller levy initially with an limit factor increase to get us to a certain base to sustain this district for the years to come.
Do you want us to give you a statement today?
No, you don't have to if you're not ready. If you want to have more conversations.
Are we ready?
I feel-
Well, okay, so.
I just want to make sure that you understand that the understanding is there, that if you choose to take a 45 cent levy, 30 cent levy, whatever it may be, that you understand what it means to go, yep, we're taking it direct and we're putting it on the ballot so we get that money immediately, or we're going to spread it out over a few years to allow an easier step into that new base and the property tax increase to the public. That's the second way to look at it.
I think the public is going to have their own ideas, just like we have different ideas. But hopefully we can get the message across about how important it is that we make a long-term decision.
Right.
And I think the long-term needs to be. You want to say something else?
Yeah, Chief, the one thing I see from that chart is hopefully the population here understands that chart on how it works. And I'm not sure if it's still well explained that the average person understands. Because in our last meeting, when I heard what was the name?
Kimberly Butts.
Kimberly Butts mention that graph and then say, but we got all this raise in taxes and so
Right.
on, so we must be really okay.
Right.
So obviously, the message isn't getting clear
Mhm.
how that works.
Not yet.
And that way, most voters could be sitting by, well, they raised our taxes. So, you know, the fire department must be getting all this money.
Mhm.
It's still, that is more of a perception that they have than the reality of how we get our money.
We have to change that. That's our business.
I agree with you. And that's going to be the educational push. And the plans to have at least 8 meetings here at this fire station before November that the public can come to. We will obviously develop flyers and educational material that can be passed out to the public. The Volunteer Association Charitable Society, they can do things beyond what I can do as the district, or that you all as the commissioners can legally allow during this election cycle or this measure cycle. So I will tirelessly work to make sure that the community, as many as I can reach, are educated to that. We'll utilize the newspaper as well to publish articles explaining this to the public. I will be writing letters to our social media accounts as well to get this information out and to educate. And the goal would be by November, it becomes a positive for us. And we can continue what we're doing and start improving what we need to improve to provide better services to this community in the future.
Okay. I can't get them to make a motion, so I'm going to.
Okay, so I'll listen to the motion. We have a question. Let me go to the chat real quick. Yeah, that is in place, Pat. So the question wasn't the issue of what apparatus to buy already been settled when the commission approved the capital plan? Well, that is correct. In the current state of the capital plan, other apparatus may be deemed necessary in the future, like the apparatus that we're going to need to have a hospital pickup program put into place, which is part of this plan for the levy increase, just not out of the capital facilities, but we understand the levy lid would have to support both operational and capital facility improvements. So we might need that vehicle, which is, I was thinking we could use my vehicle when that vehicle gets replaced, but my vehicle is pretty high for some of the elderly people that would need to get in and out of that vehicle, especially if they're injured or they've had a surgery or something like that. So a new vehicle for the purposes of being able to go pick up people from the hospital at 2 a.m. That is the expense of this agency and a benefit to the taxpayers. That's something that hasn't been distinguished yet. We may need to buy another wildfire truck, so a brush truck. So we're definitely going to have to replace the truck, and that's in the capital facilities plan. But a utility vehicle of sorts. We're going to have to replace Scooby-Doo at some point. I mean, it's a 1976 van, but does it still run? Does it still get to the scene? Yes. In good weather, not in the snow. So these are the things that every agency deals with during a capital facilities plan. We try to do what we have set out in the plan within a reasonable period of time, if not on date by year. But obviously other things come up. I mean, let's speak in municipality. I've worked for many municipalities as a firefighter, worked in Kansas City. So that municipality has a set budget for the fire department. It gets so much money out of the pool, right? Because all the tax dollars get split up amongst, the police department, the fire department, the parks department, the whatever road maintenance department within that city, all of that. And there's a certain amount in that fire department budget in that municipality for capital facilities improvements and also operational budget. Let's say overtime overruns by $1 million. And that happens very frequently in these larger agencies, that their overtime budgets overrun tremendously. Well, in a municipality, that wasn't part of the operating budget for that agency, but they have to do that overrun. Otherwise, services stations get shut down because they stop paying their people. So where does that money come from? Well, that municipality, that governance has to choose to pull that out of the kitty or the main revenue source or pot bank account of that municipality in order to cover that overextension of the operational budget for that police department or that fire department. So now let's talk about operational, capital. So they have a plan to replace 3 engines during that year. And they get 3 engines replaced. And now their ladder truck gets put into electrical lines and it gets fried and it gets destroyed. So now they have to purchase another ladder truck, which wasn't part of their capital facilities plan for that year. That money has to come out of the general fund of that municipality to cover that expense. Otherwise, the city is no longer supported. Now, if they're insured, maybe insurance will cover that to a degree. If they're self-insured, maybe they just decide to pay for it out out straight. Because we have that choice too here that yes, we're insured if we wreck one of our vehicles, that it will be replaced by insurance potentially. But that's going to increase our cost of insurance the following year and be a penalty to us. So this district could literally state that if we wreck a fire truck and we have the reserve capacity, we're just going to go ahead and pay for it straight out so we can keep our insurance costs low for the district. That's the rule. But in municipalities, they have overruns all the time in fire departments. And I'll be speaking of Kansas City. When I was there, they always had overruns, whether it was operational budget, whatever, and those had to be overcome by county city council approving additional funds for that agency that had to come out of their revenue stores, so reserve capacities. So yes, we've done the best job we can to figure out what vehicles will have to be replaced and when. Over the next decade and a half, so 13 years of this plan. But I can't say that something else won't come up during this plan.
But every year, we evaluate the budget and make adjustments necessary. I mean, that's part of what we have to do with the operation.
Yeah, if you don't want to make a decision today, I'm happy to meet with you and discuss a certain levy, either straight or a limit factor increase, and take another meeting, another 2 meetings to make that. We have the time to do that if you guys so choose to do. That's up to you as commissioners. I do not control that choice.
Well, they can not vote for my motion that I'm gonna put up. I want to move that we plan long-term. As far as the levy is concerned, and do a levy lift that is a permanent one. Over the 14, hopefully 14 years, 12 years.
Yeah.
And along with that, I would like us to consider no less than 45%.
45 cents.
I said, not percent. So-
Yeah, please don't say percent.
45 cents. And we can come back to that if we need to, as we discuss further, but I'd like to have something to start with.
Okay.
Okay, so,
That sounds wonderful.
okay, so. Increases.
45 cents is what she's put on the table so far, but we haven't discussed how that would be levied, whether it's straight levy or it will be a limit factor increase over a period of time to get to that $1.14 level, which a 45 cent levy increase would provide us. And that 45 cents can come around 2 different ways, straight, or we can start out at 30 cents and with the limit factor increase, get to that 45 cents within 6 years.
I think we have to look at that a little bit more.
Yeah.
I'm not comfortable with actually, because I've been working on that, but I haven't worked that through. But I think we can look at the 45 and then we can adjust that.
So the 45 cents is where we would like to be. And that's right now with the valuation and everything else of the community, and our current levy is $1.14. Okay, expectation, which would give us $1,069,000 projected at the end or at the beginning. If we took it straight, it would give that value to us next year. If we did a limit factor increase, it would be at the end of that limit factor increase that we would have reached that level. And then our 1% would be that new base.
I would prefer having it upfront.
So that's another meeting, maybe.
That's the direct.
So you would like to make a motion that it would be upfront, but would you like to discuss that further between the two upfront or in a limit factor increase? Do either of you want to discuss that further? Off of our current? Yeah. And I apologize, I lost my scribbles on that. Is that I did it starting out with a 30-cent levy. With a $280,000 increase, getting to that 45 cent level, but that's going to change with valuation, right? Of how much that is per thousand by the end. So right now it's $1.14 at 45 cents at our current valuation. Does that make sense? But our valuation is going to either go up or down by the time that 6 years ends.
Well, money may cost more.
And that's going to put us at to equal that 1,069,000, because that's the number that we want to reach, or 1.1 million. That number has to be decided too, that we want to do what a 45-cent levy would provide us, which get to a level, a ceiling of 1,069,000, let's say just 70,000. Or you go, we're going to round that up and go 1.1 million. So we want to get to a 1.1 million ceiling starting at a 30-cent levy with a growth factor or a limit factor increase over 6 years to get us to that 1.1. That's going to be very step fashion how we get there. And it's going to be less of an impact to the taxpayer from getting hit immediately versus over 6 years. But it also delays the amount of money we're able to put away into reserve capacity.
The amount of things that we're able to do.
Well, and that correlates with the less money we have to put away into reserve capacity. The less money we have, the less things we can do. And it's going to take more time, right, to build that up. But it's potentially doable. Sure, it's doable. But everybody needs to know that that's going to be, you either need to go immediately with it and bump it up next year and hope the voters approve that and they support that because of the explanations we have provided through all these meetings and the education that we're going to be putting out over the next 5 months before November. That has to be your choice. That has to be either over a few years or immediately, right? Because the value that we either take it over years, and now we've extended our ability to our capital facilities plan. We've had to increase it 2 to 3 years to complete some of the projects. Or we take that immediately and hopefully it'll keep us on track outside of any unexpected things coming to bear. Those are the two choices. Yes, so I asked that to our attorney today, Brian Snur. I said, is the law 6 years? In 6 years, is that the law that it has to take us 6 years to reach what new level of financing we want to have? And he goes, no, you could do it in 3 years if you wanted to. So we could take it quicker, but I don't know how that works. The chart that I'm using has 6 years because that's what most districts do, is they spread it out over 6 years. So to get to a level of 1.1 million from 928,000 from a 30-cent increase, that's just an example. A 40-cent increase would get us to, sorry. I might have to pull that up. A 40-cent increase would get us to, I don't know why I don't have that. I had it up earlier. Okay, so a 30-cent increase is about $208,000 increase. Okay, a 40-cent increase gets us to 374,000. So that's going to be like $1,022,000. That's what it gets us to. Yes, on the first year. And then that next, if we want to get to 1.1 million, if we want to get to 1.1 million from 1,022,000, then over that next 6 years, that 79,000 is taken out and stepped up over the next 6 years. So the taxpayer will see a minimal increase on their taxes every single year for 6 years to get us up to that 1.1 million base. And then from there, it goes into that 1% increase from that new base. Now, every year, of course, during this limit factor increase, I believe we also get the 1%, but I don't think I'm right on that. So forget I even said that. I think it's very strict to the percentage increase that we take every year. I don't think we don't, yeah, sorry. Thanks, Linda. Thanks for shaking your head on that one. So I said it too soon. It came out before I was thinking clearly through it. So I apologize to the public on that. We can only take, so the limit factor can be over the 6 years. To get to that 1.1, the limit factor adjusts. So that calculator shows us that if AV evaluation, our community evaluation does not change at all, we would need to take 103% every year to go from 1.22 thousand to 1.1 million in 6 years. It tells us what we're going to have to take. But if our AV changes, it changes that calculation completely. So that's the unknown, right? But we know two things. We be at, I'm just using a number, public, okay? I'm just using a number. We want to be at, can you guys still hear me? Okay, we want to be at 1.1 million. That's just a number for the public. And what's it going to take if we take a 30-cent increase or a 40-cent increase initially? And then the difference between that increase and the 1.1 million, what's the percent factor increase that's going to have to take place to get us there over 6 years? And that changes yearly. And it will be a calculation basically from us and the county to get to that, because as valuation increases or decreases, the percentage to get us there may change as well.
The cost of money.
Well, yeah, and that equates into, right now, it's $114. It's $1.14 per thousand for a 45-cent levy, if I'm speaking correctly. Okay. In 6 years, by 2030, that same money may take $1.18 to serve the same component, depending on valuation and everything else and the current levy. So we take it or the limit factor, and I'm happy to meet with you. We do need to schedule some new dates for another special meeting. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because I think the decision needs to be based on objective discussions and make sure that it sustains us and provides us the funds to overcome our capital facilities plan and operational needs, and also be able to be educated to the public.
Okay, I'll withdraw my motion. If you want to do that and make sure that we decide on the next meeting that we get a decision made. I don't think it's good to just keep jumping around.
Well, we know we're on track with now, the number we're looking at is 45 cents. But how do we get there? Right? And the value of getting there slowly or quickly to our ability to start completing some of our infrastructure needs. And that's a choice that really comes down to how you want to do it. Right? And I'll have to do some more calculations, right? And try to give you guys some more numbers that we can look at. But the AV is the unknown. The assessed value of this community is the unknown. And that can change things for us. And that I'm sorry that I don't have a better answer. But when I talk to the assessor's office and we both laugh together, that who has the crystal ball to project that is very difficult. So
Yeah, who knows where the interest rates are.
and well, that's a bond, right? That's a bond for the interest rates after the 6-year period or 3-year period. And I'll confirm that information too.
That's a big question.
Would you like the public to ask a question, or do you want to move into meetings?
No, let's ask them.
Would anybody like to ask a question?
Okay. I don't understand the concentration on what the levy rate is, because the levy rate is simply a function of how much money you're asking for out of the total valuation. That total valuation changes, the levy rate changes, but you still are going to get the same amount of money plus the 1% or whatever. So to me, that's a non-issue. What I haven't heard yet, though, in any of these discussions is with these purchases that are going to be made, what is their life expectancy? I mean, if you had a business with a fleet of trucks, you would say, okay, we get 15 years and X number of miles out of these trucks. And so you can schedule what your purchases will be down the road. Right now, you've got a bunch of 30-year-old trucks. What is going to be the lifetime of their replacements? And the reason why I ask that is, Christopher, as you know, I did the spreadsheet using your assumptions on costs and income for various numbers. But for the 40% increase, at the end of 2036, you will have received $4.5 million over your expenses, and I'm excluding making the purchases of the infrastructure there. But that's how much more than your expenses will be for that period of time. And in that year, 2036, you'll have $252,953 more than what your expenses are, and you've already paid for all of the infrastructure at that point. So if you were to get to that point and you're still collecting $250,000 more than you need to run the fire department, you are overtaxing us. And so I think there needs to be some sort of determination of how long these things are going to last for, because obviously you're going to have to continue replacing infrastructure, but is it every 13 years or is it every 30 years?
Thank you, Pat, for that. And I can see, your calculations. I need to talk to Patty about those calculations and review those on our end as well, and give that to our legal counsel to review. But I understand your concern that all of a sudden we're going to have all this money in reserve capacity, and what are we going to be doing with those funds? If I have to go to a career position department because our volunteer staff decreases to the point that now we don't have anybody, and the draw from Canada decreases, something happens at the border and doesn't allow that draw to come in anymore. One professional firefighter costs today $130,000 per person. And for those projections, I have to hire 3 for 1 to a certain period of full-time employees. And what does that mean? I have to hire 3 people to cover 1 position due to sick time, due to vacation, and everything else. And that won't provide coverage. So when we're speaking of costs that, literally, I can't say that we're going to go to or have to hire career staff in the future. I would like to continue doing it through volunteers. But as we've seen, yes, we still have some volunteers that want to come down over the Canadian border and volunteer here for this district. But can we rely on that for the next 15 years? Do things change at the border? Do we have another pandemic? Now they're not allowed to come across. I don't have answers for that. What do we do with that money? That money continues to go into reserve capacity. I stated during this meeting that we have a project, if we decide to build out this station to overcome the sleeping arrangement issues with females and males that we are getting into, that's going to be a multi-million-dollar project. And then people will want to go, well, why don't we do a bond for that? Well, we've already discussed the payments and the interest that is paid out over bonds of that substantial amount. And can we do that by pay as you go, or save up enough money to do that type of infrastructure improvements for this community? We have, if we're able to put away with the 10,000, with the increases that we're getting of the 1% a year, we're able to put away $300,000+ a year 10 years, it takes us 10 years to accrue that 3 million of the 4 that we did. And maybe we get a couple grants in between that period of time. That saves us, let's say $500,000 of that. Well, we're still putting into reserve capacity for additional things that are going to be coming up. Apparatus for an agency like ours to have good apparatus for our people. Staff cars, you're looking at 10 years. So a vehicle like mine, a vehicle like John's is basically 10 years. What's yours? So your vehicle's 15 years old right now. So he has a 2015. So for staff vehicles, we look at 10 years lifespan. For ambulances, with the amount of transports that we do currently, if that goes up, I'm probably looking at a 15 to 20 year lifespan before they have to either be repurchased or refurbished. Engines, with the amount of calls that we're running today, we could get an engine that could last us again for a 20-year or 25-year span. But to go to the 30, 35, 40 years is something that, in my mind, should not be continued on that. So, and then what do our requirements become, or the changes in what we need to offer this community, or different challenges that we have come up in the future that we don't have today? I don't know how to answer those, or to try to solidify a cost to that unknown this district. So the programs that are hopefully going to be added, if we are able to get an increase, those are going to cost money. Those are probably going to be either heavily stipend individuals, or hourly people for this community, and jobs for this community to be added through the fire district. But that's all commissioner discussion. So having a base to overcome what we have planned for the next 13 years and have reserves to continue doing more capital infrastructure, overcoming needs that are unforeseen. The last thing I want to do is get into a position that I have to come back to the taxpayers and say, you know what, we really misjudged, and we're 8 years into our levy and we need more money. And we don't have enough money to enough money to fund a non-voted bond, and the voters are not approving a voted bond measure. I think that would be irresponsible. This levy has lasted us 13 years. Could I extend this levy out another year? Potentially, but then we have zero. And now we're in a position to where we have to have this levy passed. And if we don't, we start cutting services. And what would those services come from? Do we take money from the volunteers? Do we provide the volunteers less? Do we not do our community risk reduction programs? Do we stop our community paramedic visits? All of that has cost, and where does it come from? Who wants to make those decisions? And I know sometimes those decisions have to be made by the fire chief and by the governance of the district or municipality. And those are hard decisions. I'd rather not be in that position, but if that's where we end up, then that's where we end up. So apparatus has, for our district right now, fire trucks, I'll give it a 20-year lifespan for a quality fire truck to last what we do to it and not to be overcome by obsoleteness in 20 years from now.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for the question. The additional reserve capacity that we continue getting on a yearly basis, once we start finalizing some of these capital infrastructure needs, again, I'll go back to, there's never a time that we don't have something that has to be done or something that we need to improve for the volunteers that do the job. So they can do more for the person's front, that they're walking through the front door on, that needs our assistance. I have no idea where EMS equipment's going to go for the future, the advances that we could provide for this community. I have no crystal ball on that. Our outreach program, we could potentially in the future, hire on If we had the funds, we could hire on a PA, a nurse practitioner, to be an outsourcing person to this community and to provide in-home value to this community. I mean, those are discussions that other organizations already have done. Other organizations have already added nurse practitioners, but that will come a cost of $100,000 or more for that person to be full-time in this community and to provide potentially what the clinic is not able to provide. And we're able to do that through the fire district. Those are all plans that I would like to look into. My eyes are wide open on the potential of what we are able to do and add and continue if we have the funds to do so in the future for all of us. And listen, I have to pay this tax too. So I'm looking at this and I'm not swimming in money, financially. And with the value of my home, my cost is going to go up at least, $400 a year. When I look at that and go, okay, if I do that, it's probably going to go up between $300 and $400. And I have to be willing to accept that too. Could you imagine the fire chief voting no on the measure? I think that would be a bad day if a fire chief voted no on the measure. But, it's also funny to think about it that I pay myself to work here. There's a portion of my taxes that goes into my check. And that's kind of funny to look at that. Anybody that works in the municipality that they work for and lives in that municipality pays themselves a penny or 2 pennies out of their, taxes to go into their check. But what we're trying to do, and I understand not all people may agree, is that we want to financially sustain ourselves so we don't have to come back to the taxpayers over the next decade or 2 decades for more money, that we're able to continue putting into our reserve capacity to continue supporting the levy that's currently in place. And let's say we get all of our infrastructure stuff done and we have nothing that comes to mind that we can think of that we need to improve for this community. Then that is solid capacity for the taxpayers. And maybe we have a couple years of that we have $400,000 going into reserve capacity. And now at 3 years, 3, 5, 6, something infrastructurally has come up. We decided to go, start a new program for the community. We decided to hire that nurse practitioner, that physician assistant, whoever that may be, to do a robust outreach program to our senior citizens of our community. I can't answer those questions, but would I like to design a system like that? Of course I would, for this community. I love this community. I live in this community. I came here and in 2012 went through a lot of stuff for about 2 to 3 years, proving myself and proving the direction I wanted to take this, organization. And I think we've done a great job, but it's taken a team and it's taken commissioners that see that vision. And we haven't always agreed. We have not always agreed. We agree differently. I like that say. I just heard that the other day. We agree differently in a disagreement. We agree differently. But I think it's important for me to look into that future, to look into maybe, 15 years. Will I still be here? I can't even answer that question. If I'm good in physical health and the community still wants me in this leadership position, I would hope that I would still be here. But some of the people, even on this meeting, will no longer be here in 15 years, let alone 10 years or 20 years. And I guess no, they're not, those that won't be in this community, I guess it is what it is when they're not here. I mean, they obviously don't care anymore about what happens to the community, but when it's my time to go and step down from this position, I hope that I've set up the district to be successful with a new chief, to be successful and not run into financial difficulties in the beginning of his or her time, and being able to take what we've established in my time and to improve it from that point forwards and not have to go backwards. I never want to go backwards. And I understand that, yes, okay, well, maybe this doesn't work out. And maybe the community is not on board with this. Well, then that starts the process of going backwards, because right now we don't have the funds. So we have to move forwards in a direction and in a capacity, as some have said during these meetings, that, you know, the sooner we buy stuff, the better for the community and the better for our, you know, bottom line, because it's cheaper the sooner we buy it. That's been mentioned a couple times by people. And I agree with that philosophy, but there are times that things have to get delayed and pushed back or rearranged, like the suggestion that I've received of moving medical stuff up and maybe fire stuff down. That's something I'm definitely willing to look at. So now how do we get to the, you know, if the 45 cents stays in the coming up meetings, you know, how do we get there? How do we get there? And how will that education process go? I wish more people would come to the meetings, you know, but these will be published as soon as possible for the public to watch. But I definitely want to answer questions that the public may have about any of this process, the numbers definitely, because there's a lot of numbers being shown to the public at these meetings. And I value their ability to understand 100% and also be able to help educate their friends and their families and their neighbors objectively on this measure. And whether they vote yes or no, I just want objective education being done. And I will do everything I can to help see that happen. So you were wanting to set dates for our next meetings. Do you want to go on a weekly basis at this point through the end of the month? So that would give us 2 more meetings by the end of the month, and then the first week of July before our next major meeting. Is that okay with all of you?
See what we can come up with.
So we have the 14th, so the week of the 19th through the 23rd. I have the 19th. I have the 20th. I have the 22nd. So the 19th, 20th, or 22nd, and Linda and Patty, if you could speak up in this, what works for all of you as well.
Mondays and Wednesdays work best for me.
Okay. So it'd be Monday, the 19th. Wednesday, I can't, but I do have Thursday. Is Thursday out for you, Patty?
Yes, it would be. But please don't schedule around my schedule.
So it would have to be Monday or Tuesday or Thursday. If Patty can't make it, then she can't make that week. So the 19th, 20th, or 22nd, what works best for, are you available?
I'm not sure. Why don't we come to?
I can send these dates out to the commissioners and you can choose.
I really need to find out where I'm gonna be.
Okay, so let me send out some of these dates to all of the commissioners and to the legislative branch here. Okay, I'll send out those dates. And then once we finalize dates for the week of the 19th, the 26th, and the 3rd, those will be published as soon as possible to the public.
So the 20, 19, 26.
Yeah, so the week of the 19th, 26th, and 3rd, and then our next commissioners meeting is on the 12th of July.
Okay.
That's our regular scheduled meeting is on the 12th of July. So we'll come up with 2 or 3 meeting dates before then. So we can continue this discussion and either you can make a decision at a special meeting, you can make the decision at the special meeting. Because by the 14th, I'll have to talk to Brian to see if the 14th, if a decision is made on the 14th, if that 14th date will be enough time to get all the paperwork together and everything else that needs to be done to meet the deadline in August. Because the resolution will have to be passed by this governance. And that's going to have to be another special meeting after the 14th. To get that resolution passed, the language for the ballot and everything else approved, so we can send that into the county.
We're talking about, July 14th?
Is our next
Yeah.
regular meeting,
Yeah.
but hopefully we'll have 2 or 3 meetings prior to that.
Okay.
And again, a decision can be made for this levy measure at a special meeting. It doesn't have to be at our regular meeting. It can be done at a special meeting. And then further at our regular meeting. And then again, resolutions have to be drawn up after that to be approved. And that would most likely take another special meeting.
So you'll send us out some dates,
I will send you dates, hopefully by tomorrow morning,
okay?
and then we can choose 2 or 3 of those dates to have additional meetings that the public can join in on and ask questions, and then a decision path is made by you.
Anybody in the public want to make one last comment? Your last chance.
For today.
Okay.
I want to thank everybody that's coming to these meetings. Bill, Rhonda, Pat, thank you for being part of these meetings and for your emails and your input and your ideas and concepts. It has helped. It has provided guidance. So yeah, Chief, I can never have enough coffee. So whoever wants to, thanks, Bill, for putting that up. I would love to meet. I would rather meet with everybody in this community and have coffee to make sure that they have the correct information for this measure versus false information or incorrect information is being spread. So thanks to everybody for everything and for being here for this process.
Thank you.
You want to terminate the meeting?
I needed a motion to adjourn. Make a motion to adjourn this meeting. Second. And I will adjourn it at 6:36. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
And we welcome
Thanks.
visitors.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.